Hello everyone, this is Calvin Russell, CEO and founder of 850 Club Credit Consultation, as well as licensed managing broker for Park Place Realty, which is a full service real estate brokerage. All right, let's go ahead and go straight into today's video, which is what documents do you need in order to sell your property? All right. So now keep in mind, I'm licensed in Illinois. However, these contracts may sound slightly different in your state, but for the most part, I'm going to just give you generalized names and what we call them in the state of Illinois. All right. So the first document that you're going to need in order to sell your home is going to be your property disclosures. Okay. This is where the seller, you're disclosing your knowledge based on the overall property, which, by the way, I'm going to give you guys a free download packet, okay? And this packet is going to be everything you need in order to sell your property, okay? And but of course, in the state of Illinois, we call them property disclosures. I'm sure in your state that's what they call them as well too. And there's 3 disclosures that our state requires in order for you to sell your property, okay? The very first one is going to be the property disclosure itself, okay? This is going to be you, the seller, your knowledge of the overall property. So it's going to ask you, are there any gas lines, underneath the house, or any storage tanks, underneath the house? Was your house used for methamphetamines? I don't know, so you got to disclose that. Also, some other stuff. Have you ever lived in a property for 12 months? And essentially just the overall condition of the property. So it's about, 20 to 25 questions, there as well for you to answer. Only you can fill that out, or a member of the family. But of course, you would rather it be the seller and their knowledge as well. If you do have to answer yes to some of the questions, then there's an explanation line down at the bottom to explain what you may have said yes to. Okay, so that's number 1, is the property disclosure. Next is going to be the lead-based paint disclosure. Now, this may not be required depending on if your property was built before 1978. It is required if your property was built before 1978. If it was built after 1978, you do not need to disclose the lead-based paint. But out of habit, I think a lot of agents just go ahead and just get it signed, or if they may have forgotten about the whole 1978 rule, just because we're so used to so many properties, historical Illinois, right? So many properties were built prior to 1978, so we're so used to getting that, as well. And this document may not be required in your state. I would doubt that you don't have to have it, so I don't know if that's a double negative, but either way, I'm sure you probably would need to have this document as well. That's the lead-based paint document. And again, you'll be able to download all of these documents. Keep in mind, these are for the state of Illinois down below. I may or may not add some states. I just got to do some research or whatever, but either way, Illinois is going to be attached to you. You can just go ahead and just download those, okay? Next is going to be the radon disclosure. Okay, so with the radon disclosure, this is, again, you, the seller, your knowledge if the property has radon. Okay, same thing with the lead-based paint and the property overall in general. What's your knowledge about this particular situation? Do you have radon in your home? Now, if you have radon in the home, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't sell your home. Same thing with lead-based paint. If you have lead-based paint in your home, that doesn't mean you can't sell the property, okay? You're just disclosing that you know about it, okay? And it's up to the buyer to make the next decision to move forward or to ask for documentation regarding that. Number 2, you don't have to get things tested. You don't have to get your home tested for radon to sell your property. If you have no knowledge, you have no knowledge. If you have knowledge, it's best to provide that report. Same thing with lead-based paint. If you don't have to get the lead-based paint removed inside your home to sell your property, but again, it's up to the buyer and between you to make that arrangement if needed. Okay, so those are the only 3 disclosure documents that are needed. Now, there's some other disclosures as well too. One of the most popular ones is mold, like a mold disclosure. You must disclose that, but again, your state may or may not require that to sell your property. Okay, and then of course you have the as-is addendum. So if you want to sell your property as is, there is a spot on the contract contract to go ahead and add that piece. But some people like to play it safe and say, listen, I'm just reminding you in a 1 to 2 page document that you are buying this property as is, and I'm not doing any repairs, yada, yada, blah, right? So don't worry, that'll be in your download package as well. Next, we use what we call the multi-board 7.0 contract. It's a sales contract, so that's what we call it in Illinois. But either way, to sell your property, you obviously have to have, a contract in place. Okay, so that we call it a multi-board 7.0. But again, it's in many states just called a sales contract, and it's going to have everything in there: the buyer's name, the seller's name, the property address, what's coming with the property, the loan type, the agreed to price, down payment, earnest money amount. Do they have to buy do they have to sell their home to buy your home? When is the person getting the possession date? The loan type, the terms, all that fun stuff, right? Everything's covered in 13 pages. Now, you don't have to, obviously, it's up to you if you want to read every single page, but a good 60 to 70% of that contract doesn't apply to a lot of deals. Usually, if your deals are like cash only, so a lot of that stuff is not going to apply. So it just really depends on, how you're buying that property and how the seller's selling that property, what you guys agreed to, where those pages will kind of come in. Okay, so those essentially is what you're going to need. Now, there's a couple of other documents obviously is going to play a role that can't be provided by us, the agents, or anyone else but you, and that's going to be your payoff or the deed itself. Okay, so if the payoff is essentially what you owe on the property, they're going to need to have that information, not super early, but at least having to have an idea of what you owe on the property. That's going to determine a couple things, especially if you plan on selling it on your own. What the price is going to be, what your estimated closing costs are going to be, and is there enough to cover what you owe on the property. Also, you're going to have the deed, of course, if the property is paid off. This is where an attorney can get that information as well too, to help you out, with that as well. Okay, so again, that's the contract. That's going to be the property disclosures, which is the property disclosure itself, lead-based paint, radon. You're also going to have your mold disclosure. That's optional. As is, that's optional as well. You're going to have your payoff. And of course, you're going to have your deed if you don't necessarily have a payoff. Okay, so but those are the main things that you need in order to sell your property. Depending on where you live, they may do what they call a pre-sale inspection. Okay, some call it of course, some people call it a pre-sale inspection, or I forgot another name for it. But essentially, this is where your city, your village, your township, they want to inspect your home before you sell it, because this is their opportunity to bring that property up to code. They're not necessarily trying to find out if you did any, unpermitted work. So of course they are, right? But at the same time, they want to make sure that if people are doing stuff to their homes, they're not messing this stuff up, okay? And creating, all type of craziness. A buyer could easily buy your property without doing an inspection, without having any knowledge about some craziness that's going on inside your home. But some villages, townships, cities prevent that, and they say, listen, let us get involved. We need to make sure that this house don't blow up next week. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our inspection. Now, the greatest thing about that is that most pre-sale inspectors, or villages, cities, whatever, they will allow, if there are repairs that are required to sell the property, they will allow the buyer to assume those repairs. Not all places will do that, but most will. And what's the greatest thing about that is, let's say, for example, a person's buying a property from you, and your village says that you have to do X amount of repairs. You got the money, but you don't want to spend it, or you don't have the money, or you just don't want to do it in general, right? The buyer can assume that responsibility, and of course, the village will then follow up with that buyer after the property is now sold. So you're not necessarily always forced to take those repairs amongst yourself. But again, that's between, also the buyer has to agree to that as well. Some buyers are like, I'm not going to do all that. This is my opportunity for you to fix it. Go ahead and fix it, right? So again, some villages will require that you need a past village, city, township inspection in order to sell your property. Okay, so most of those documents I'll go ahead and provide to you where you can download them. Again, that's for the state of Illinois. May or may not add some states. You guys just check back with this video and see if there's some more states that are added. If you like this video, like it. You want to share it, and as always, be sure to subscribe, as we have nothing but great content on the way. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.